spilling Nia Thompson's belongings into the rain-soaked street. "Please, Daniel," she begged. One hand pressed protectively against her 7-month pregnant belly. "It's pouring. Just let me stay until morning. I'll find somewhere to go, I promise." Daniel Thompson stood in the doorway of the house they'd shared for 3 years, his face carved from stone and contempt. Behind him, Nia could see her. Amber Chun, the woman who'd been systematically destroying their marriage for the past 6 months, draped in one of Nia's silk robes, smirking. "You've had 3 years to make something of yourself," Daniel said coldly. 3 years of living off my income while you played artist. I'm done carrying dead weight. Amber's moving in tonight, and there's no room for you anymore. I'm pregnant with your child." Nia's voice cracked, rain mixing with tears on her face. "You can't just throw us out like trash." "Can't I?" Daniel pulled an envelope from his pocket, tossed it at her feet. "Divorce papers. Sign them and you'll get 20,000. Refuse and you'll get nothing. I've got lawyers who'll make sure you walk away with exactly what you brought into this marriage. Nothing. The baby, get a paternity test. Prove it's mine. Until then, I'm not responsible for anything." He started closing the door, then paused. "Oh, and Nia, don't bother calling your family. We both know they won't help. Your brothers made it clear years ago they wanted nothing to do with you after you married beneath their standards. You're on your own." The door slammed. The lock clicked. Through the window, Nia could see Amber laughing, wrapping her arms around Daniel's neck, kissing him in the entryway where Nia had once hung family photos. Nia stood in the rain, 7 months pregnant, homeless, with a burst suitcase and $20,000 in hush money, and realized she'd just lost everything. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't know because Nia had kept it from him out of pride, was that her 3 brothers weren't just wealthy businessmen who disapproved of her marriage. They were billionaires, and they'd been waiting 3 years for Nia to come home. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into Nia's story of betrayal and the justice that's about to rain down on the man who threw her away, I want to say hello to all of you watching. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because this story is about family, loyalty, and what happens when you underestimate a woman who has 3 powerful brothers who would burn down the world to protect her. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. 3 years earlier, Nia Thompson had been Nia Okafor, youngest daughter of Nigerian immigrants who'd built a technology empire from nothing. Her father, Dr. Emmanuel Okafor, had come to America with a PhD in computer engineering and $10 in his pocket. Her mother, Dr. Amara Okafor, had been a software architect before software architecture was even a recognized field. Together, they'd founded Okafor Technologies in their garage in Silicon Valley. By the time Nia was born, the company was worth $100 million. By the time she was 10, $1 billion. By the time she was 18, her parents had sold it to a larger tech conglomerate for $8 billion and retired to focus on philanthropy and their children's futures. Nia's 3 older brothers had taken their inheritance and multiplied it. Marcus, the eldest at 38, ran a private equity firm managing $20 billion in assets. Isaiah, 35, owned a chain of luxury hotels across 3 continents. And Elijah, 32, had built a venture capital empire funding the next generation of tech startups. The Okafor siblings were royalty in certain circles, powerful, connected, untouchable, and Nia had walked away from all of it to marry Daniel Thompson. She'd met him at an art gallery opening in Chicago where she'd been showing her paintings. He'd been charming, attentive, different from the wealthy men who'd circled her family looking for connections and access to money. Daniel had been a middle manager at a manufacturing company. Stable, normal. He'd loved her art, her laugh, her dreams of making it as a painter. He'd made her feel seen for who she was, not whose daughter she was. Her brothers had hated him immediately. "He's using you," Marcus had warned. "He sees dollar signs, not his sister. He doesn't even know what I'm worth," Nia had defended. "I didn't tell him about the family." "Then tell him," Isaiah had demanded. "See how he reacts. If he loves you, it won't matter. If he's a gold digger, he'll show his true colors." But Nia had been 24 and in love and tired of people only seeing the Okafor fortune when they looked at her. So she'd lied to Daniel, told him her family was comfortable but not wealthy, that her brothers were successful but not billionaires, that she was just a regular girl from a regular family. Daniel had proposed 6 months after they'd met. A small wedding, just their friends. Nia's brothers hadn't come. She hadn't invited them, knowing they'd cause a scene, knowing they'd bring their security teams and their judgments. She'd chosen Daniel over her family, chosen love over money, chosen independence over privilege. And for the first year, it had been wonderful. Daniel had supported her art. They'd lived in a modest apartment. She'd sold paintings at local galleries. They'd been happy. Then Daniel had gotten promoted, started making real money, started meeting people at corporate events who name-dropped and networked and climbed social ladders, started looking at Nia's art career as a hobby instead of a passion, started comparing her to the wives of his colleagues, women with law degrees and medical careers and titles that sounded impressive at dinner parties. Started suggesting she do something more practical than painting. Then he'd met Amber Chun at a company retreat. 28, ambitious, beautiful, with an MBA and a ruthless drive to succeed. Everything Nia wasn't. The affair had started 6 months ago. Nia had known almost immediately. Daniel had gotten sloppy, hadn't bothered hiding it well. But she'd been 3 months pregnant and terrified and still foolishly hoping he'd choose his family. Instead, he'd chosen Amber. And tonight, in the rain, he'd literally thrown his pregnant wife into the street. Now Nia sat in a 24-hour coffee shop 6 blocks from the house that was no longer hers, using the free Wi-Fi to search for cheap motels, her wet clothes clinging to her shivering body, her hands shaking as she counted the cash in her wallet. $43, plus the envelope Daniel had thrown at her. She couldn't even look at it yet, couldn't stomach the idea of taking his hush money. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. "Nia, this is Dr. Sarah Chun from Chicago Memorial. You missed your prenatal appointment today. Your blood pressure was elevated last visit. Please reschedule ASAP. Baby's health is at risk if we don't monitor closely." Nia looked at her phone, at the medical warning, at the reality of her situation. She was homeless, broke, 7 months pregnant with high blood pressure, and too proud to call the brothers who'd warned her this would happen. Except she wasn't just risking herself anymore. She was risking her baby. With shaking hands, Nia pulled up her contacts, found the number she'd saved under Do Not Call Marcus, stared at it for 5 full minutes. Then she pressed call. It rang once, twice. She almost hung up. "Nia?" Marcus's voice came through, shocked and immediately alert. "Is that you? Are you okay?" She opened her mouth to say she was fine, to make excuses, to pretend she didn't need help. Instead, what came out was, "I need to come home." 12 hours later, A private jet landed at O'Hare International Airport. Marcus Okafor stepped off looking exactly as Nia remembered, 6'4", powerful build, designer suit, the kind of presence that made people instinctively move out of his way. Behind him came Isaiah and Elijah, equally imposing, equally furious. Nia waited in the private terminal, her pathetic burst suitcase beside her. Wearing yesterday's rain-soaked clothes, looking nothing like the Okafor princess she'd been born to be. Marcus reached her first, looked her up and down, took in the pregnant belly, the exhaustion, the obvious evidence of someone who'd been crying for hours. "Where is he?" Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "Where's the man who did this to you?" "Marcus, I don't want." "Where is he?" Nia had forgotten what it was like to have people who'd go to war for her, who'd burn down cities for her protection, who loved her unconditionally even when she'd chosen poorly. "He kicked me out last night," she said quietly, "for his mistress. He's at the house, our house, with her." Isaiah made a sound like a growl. "He did what?" "He doesn't know about the family, about any of you. I never told him." Nia looked at her brothers, at the fury and protectiveness radiating from them. "He thinks I'm nobody, that I have nothing, that I have no one to protect me." Elijah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Then he's about to get a very educational experience in exactly who the Okafor family is, and what we do to people who hurt our sister." Marcus pulled Nia into his arms, careful of her pregnant belly, and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "You're home now," he said firmly. "You and your baby are safe, and that man is about to wish he'd treated you better." "I don't want revenge," Nia whispered. "I just want my baby to be safe, want to be able to breathe again." "You'll have both," Isaiah promised. "But Nia, he's getting justice whether you ask for it or not. Nobody throws our sister into the street and walks away unscathed." They flew her to San Francisco that afternoon, to the family estate in Pacific Heights that Nia hadn't seen in 3 years, to the home she'd walked away from because she'd wanted to prove she could make it on her own. The estate staff greeted her like returning royalty. Her old bedroom was exactly as she'd left it. Her brother's security team was already compiling everything they could find on Daniel Thompson. And Nia, exhausted and broken and 7 months pregnant, allowed herself to be taken care of for the first time in years. She had no idea that her brothers were already making phone calls, already mobilizing resources, already planning the systematic destruction of a man who'd made the fatal error of underestimating exactly who he'd married. Daniel Thompson thought he'd discarded someone powerless. He was about to learn he'd declared war on one of the most powerful families in America. And the Okafor brothers didn't lose wars. They obliterated their enemies. In Chicago, Daniel woke up beside Amber in the bed he'd shared with Nia until yesterday, feeling satisfied and free. His phone rang. His boss. "Daniel, we need to talk. Come to my office. Now." "It's Saturday. What's this about?" "Your employment. Get here in 20 minutes. Daniel arrived at the office confused and increasingly nervous. His boss sat behind his desk looking pale. "Daniel, I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Security will escort you out." "What? Why? What did I do?" "I received a call this morning from our primary investor. They've made it clear that your continued employment here would result in them pulling $40 million in funding. I don't know what you did or who you pissed off, but I can't risk the company for you." His boss slid a box across the desk. "Pack your things. You have 10 minutes. Daniel's world tilted. Who called? What investor? Okafor Capital Partners. Ring any bells? The name meant nothing to Daniel. He'd never heard of Okafor Capital Partners. Had no idea why they'd care about him. But as security escorted him from the building with his pathetic box of desk items, as Amber called asking where the joint credit card was because it had been declined, as his phone started ringing with calls from his landlord saying the lease wasn't being renewed, Daniel began to understand that something very bad was happening. He just had no idea it was only the beginning, or that the woman he'd thrown into the street had brothers who were about to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. The Okafor family protected their own, and Daniel Thompson had just made himself their enemy. If you are enjoying this story, click the like and subscribe button. Part 2. Character Foundation. The Okafor family estate in Pacific Heights occupied an entire city block with views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay beyond. Nia woke in her childhood bedroom to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of her mother's cooking drifting up from the kitchen. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. The rain, Daniel's cruelty, the brothers she hadn't seen in 3 years. A knock on the door. Nia? You awake? Marcus's voice, gentler than she remembered. Come in. Her eldest brother entered carrying a tray with breakfast and tea. He'd traded yesterday's power suit for jeans and a sweater, looking more like the Marcus who taught her to ride a bike than the billionaire who ran a private equity empire. How'd you sleep? He asked, setting the tray on her bedside table. Better than I have in months. Nia sat up slowly, her pregnant belly making everything awkward. Marcus, about yesterday. Don't. He sat in the chair by her bed. Don't apologize for coming home. Don't apologize for needing help. And definitely don't apologize for that piece of shit you married. You were right about him. All of you were. I hate being right about this. Marcus looked at her with eyes that held years of worry. We lost 3 years with you, Nia. 3 years of watching you pull away because we made you feel judged. I'd rather have been wrong and had you here. I needed to prove I could make it on my own. That I wasn't just the Okafor baby sister. You are the Okafor baby sister. That's not an insult. It's family. Marcus reached for her hand. And family means you never have to prove you deserve our protection. You just have it. Always. Tears slipped down Nia's cheeks. He threw me out like I was nothing. Like 3 years meant nothing. Like our baby meant nothing. Then he's a fool. And he's about to pay for that foolishness in ways he can't imagine. Marcus's expression hardened. I've got Isaiah and Elijah working on something. But before we go further, I need to know. Do you want us to back off? This is your life. Your choice. We'll support whatever you decide. Nia thought about Daniel's face as he'd closed the door. Thought about Amber laughing in her robe. Thought about standing in the rain, pregnant and homeless, while the man who'd promised to love her left her with nothing. I want justice, she said quietly. Not just for me, for our baby. I want him to understand that you don't get to throw people away and face no consequences. Marcus smiled. It was the smile that made opposing attorneys nervous. Then let's have breakfast with your brothers and plan how to give Daniel Thompson an education in consequences. The war room, what had once been their father's study, was where the Okafor siblings gathered to plan. Isaiah sat at the massive oak desk, 3 computer screens displaying information about Daniel Thompson's life. At 35, he was the middle brother, quieter than Marcus but no less formidable. His hotel empire spanned from Dubai to Paris, and he had connections in every major city in the world. Elijah, the youngest of the brothers at 32, paced while talking on the phone in rapid ebo. His venture capital firm had funded 73 startups in the past 5 years, 42 of which had become successful companies. He knew everyone in tech, finance, and Silicon Valley power circles. They both looked up when Nia entered with Marcus. Isaiah was on his feet immediately, crossing to wrap her in a careful hug. "How's my favorite sister? I'm your only sister, which makes you automatically the favorite." He stepped back, studied her face. "You look better than yesterday, less like you were about to shatter." "I'm still fragile, but I'm here. That's something." Elijah finished his call, pocketed his phone, and approached more hesitantly. He'd been the most vocal opponent of her marriage to Daniel, had said things in anger that Nia knew he'd regretted. Now he looked at her like he was afraid she'd reject. His hug. Nia opened her arms. Elijah's relief was visible as he embraced her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for the things I said 3 years ago, for not being gentler, for making you feel like you had to choose between him and us. You were trying to protect me. Yeah, but I was also being an arrogant ass about it." Elijah pulled back, managed a small smile. "For the record, I hate being right about him almost as much as Marcus does." "Almost." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I'm marginally more petty than you. I'm enjoying the vindication." Elijah gestured to the screens. "Want to see what we've found on your soon-to-be ex-husband?" They spent the next hour reviewing everything the brothers had compiled in less than 24 hours. Daniel Thompson, 32, had been a middle manager at Harman Manufacturing until yesterday morning when Marcus's call to the company's primary investor had resulted in his immediate termination. He'd met Nia at an art gallery 3 years ago, married her 6 months later, and had spent the past 3 years living modestly while she sold paintings and he climbed the corporate ladder. Modest by his standards, Isaiah clarified. "But we found something interesting. After you married him, Daniel's lifestyle started creeping up. Better apartment, new car, designer clothes, all on credit, but still." "I didn't notice," Nia said. "I was focused on my art, on making our life work." "That's because you're not materialistic," Marcus said. "But Daniel is. Look at this. 6 months after marrying you, he started researching the Okafor family." Elijah pulled up search history they'd obtained through less than legal means. "He knows who we are, Nia. He's known for at least 2 years. Look, articles about Marcus's private equity firm, Isaiah's hotels, my venture capital deals. He even found old society photos of you at charity events before you left the family." Nia felt sick. "He knew? This whole time, he knew I came for money. And he never said anything, never asked. Just kept pretending he believed your story about coming from a comfortable but not wealthy family." Isaiah's voice was grim. "The question is why?" Marcus pulled up another document. "I think I know. Look at this. Loan applications Daniel filed 8 months ago. He was trying to start his own manufacturing consulting business. Needed $2 million in startup capital. Was rejected by every bank he approached because he didn't have collateral or business experience. So he needed money," Nia said slowly. "And he knew I had access to family money but wasn't using it. And maybe he was trying to figure out how to get you to ask us for help," Elijah added. "How to leverage your connection to the Okafor fortune without revealing that he knew about it. Then I got pregnant." Nia's hand went to her belly. "And that complicated things. Or maybe that's when Amber Chun entered the picture and gave him a different option. Isaiah pulled up information on Daniel's mistress. Amber Chun, 28, MBA from Northwestern, currently a senior consultant at Mercer Strategic Group. Her father is David Chun, owns Chun Import-Export, worth about $50 million. Not billionaire money, but significant, Marcus observed. And look at this, Daniel met Amber's father 6 weeks ago. They had dinner, discussed a potential business partnership. The pieces clicked into place in Nia's mind. He was trading me for her, trading access to my family's money for access to her family's business connections. Looks like it. And when you were 7 months pregnant and unable to work, unable to contribute to household income in ways he could point to, you became expendable. Marcus's voice was ice. He threw you out because he thought you were worth less than what Amber's family could offer. Nia felt anger burning through the hurt. He threw out his pregnant wife for a business opportunity. A business opportunity that's about to evaporate, Elijah said with satisfaction. Want to know what we've done in the past 24 hours? Over the next hour, the brothers laid out their systematic destruction of Daniel Thompson's life. Marcus had made calls to every investor connected to Harman Manufacturing, strongly suggesting that Daniel's continued employment would be problematic. The company had fired him immediately to protect their funding. Isaiah had reached out to contacts at Chun Import-Export. A few careful mentions of Daniel's character, his treatment of his pregnant wife, his history of financial irresponsibility. David Chun had canceled the dinner meeting he'd scheduled with Daniel for next week. Elijah had leveraged connections in Chicago's business community. Every consulting firm Daniel had applied to for post-firing employment had suddenly decided he wasn't a good fit. Every networking contact had stopped returning his calls. We've also filed for full custody of your baby, Marcus added. The moment he or she is born, we're establishing that you have full parental rights and Daniel has none until he can prove paternity and financial stability. Can we do that? Nia asked. With our lawyers? Yes. They're the best in the country. Marcus pulled up legal documents. We're also contesting the divorce on grounds of abandonment and financial abuse. That $20,000 he offered, we're making sure you get half of everything. The house, the car, his 401k, everything. He doesn't have that much. We lived modestly. He has more than you think. We found hidden accounts, money he'd been siphoning from household funds. Isaiah showed her bank records. About $60,000 in an account you didn't know about. Your name isn't on it, but it was funded with joint income. Nia stared at the evidence of betrayal layered upon betrayal. He was stealing from us while I was selling my paintings to pay for groceries. He's a piece of shit, Elijah said bluntly, and we're going to make sure he pays for every moment of suffering he caused you. There's one more thing, Marcus said carefully. We want to release a statement. Make it clear that you're an Okafor, that you have family, that you're protected. It'll stop Daniel from harassing you, stop Amber from feeling smug, and make it very clear to everyone in Chicago that you're not alone. It'll also make my entire marriage look like a lie, Nia said quietly. Like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. You were protecting yourself. There's no shame in that. Isaiah touched her shoulder gently. But people should know the truth now. Should know that the woman Daniel threw out isn't some vulnerable nobody. She's our sister. And we don't let people hurt our family without consequences. Nia looked at her 3 brothers, powerful men who'd spent 3 years respecting her choice to live independently. who'd welcomed her home without judgment, who were now mobilizing their considerable resources to protect her and her child. Okay, she decided. Release the statement. Let him know exactly who he married, and who he made an enemy of. The statement went out that evening through the Okafor family's PR team. The Okafor family is pleased to announce that Nia Okafor Thompson has returned home to San Francisco. Ms. Thompson, youngest daughter of Dr. Emmanuel and Dr. Amara Okafor, is expecting her first child and will be focusing on family during this time. The Okafor family looks forward to welcoming the newest member of our family and supporting Nia in all her future endeavors. It was simple, dignified, and to anyone who knew who the Okafor family was, it was a declaration of war. Nia Okafor Thompson wasn't just some woman Daniel had discarded. She was the sister of 3 billionaires, the daughter of tech royalty, a member of one of the most powerful black families in America, and she was protected. The story hit social media within an hour. Within 3 hours, it was trending on Twitter. Within 6 hours, every major business publication had picked it up. Billionaire Okafor brothers welcome sister home. Tech heiress Nia Okafor returns to family estate. Okafor family announces newest addition sisters. Baby. In Chicago, Daniel Thompson watched the news coverage with growing horror. He'd married an Okafor. He'd thrown out an Okafor. He'd made enemies of the Okafor brothers. And he was just beginning to understand how completely he'd destroyed his life. His phone rang. Amber. Did you know? She screamed. Did you know you were married to a billionaire sister? I thought she was exaggerating about her family. I thought. You thought? You told me she was nobody. You said her family had disowned her. Now her brothers are making it very clear she's protected. And I'm getting texts from friends asking if I'm the homewrecker who helped break up an Okafor marriage. Amber's voice was shrill with panic. My father just called. He's furious. He's saying associating with you is going to hurt our family's business relationships. Daniel, what did you do? I didn't know she was... I knew the name, but I didn't think... You didn't think. That's the problem. You never think. Amber's voice went cold. Don't call me again. Don't come to the house. We're done. I'm not risking my career and my family's reputation for you. The line went dead. Daniel sat in the house that was about to be taken from him, in the career that had already been destroyed, with the woman he'd chosen over his wife now abandoning him too, and understood with perfect clarity that he'd made the worst mistake of his life. He'd thrown away an Okafor, and the Okafor family was just getting started showing him the consequences. In San Francisco, Nia sat with her brothers on the estate's back terrace, watching the sun set over the bay, feeling her baby move inside her. How are you feeling? Marcus asked. About all of it? Lighter, Nia admitted. Like I can finally breathe. I spent 3 years trying to prove I didn't need my family's money or power, trying to be normal, and Daniel used that against me, made me feel small and worthless because I didn't have a real career. Your art is real, Elijah said firmly. You're talented, Nia. You always have been. Thank you. She looked at her brothers. For not saying I told you so. For just being here. We're always here, Isaiah promised. Even when you choose to be somewhere else. Even when we disagree. You're our sister. That doesn't change. What happens now? Nia asked. Marcus smiled. Now we make sure Daniel Thompson understands exactly what he lost. And we make sure you and your baby have everything you need to thrive. And then you decide what you want your life to look like. With our support. No judgment, no pressure, just family. Nia felt tears slip down her face again, but this time they were relief and gratitude instead of pain. She'd lost her husband, lost her home, lost the life she'd tried to build, but she'd gained back something far more valuable. Her family, her protection, her sense of worth. And soon she'd have her baby, a child who would grow up knowing they were loved, protected, and valued by a family that didn't abandon their own. Daniel had thrown them away thinking they were worthless. He was about to learn they were priceless, and the lesson was going to cost him everything. The Okafor family has been revealed. Daniel's world is crumbling. Amber has abandoned him, and the brothers are just getting started. If you are yet to subscribe, do so now. Let's hit 1,000 subscriber family. Daniel Thompson's attempt to fight back began exactly 1 week after the Okafor family's public statement, when he showed up at the San Francisco estate demanding to see Nia. Security stopped him at the gate. "I'm her husband," Daniel insisted to the guard. "I have a legal right to see her." "Sir, Mrs. Thompson has a restraining order against you. You're not permitted within 500 feet of this property or her person." The guard gestured to the camera recording everything. "If you don't leave immediately, we'll call the police." Restraining order? On what grounds? Domestic abandonment and emotional abuse. The order was granted yesterday by Judge Patricia Morrison. "You should have been served this morning." Daniel's lawyer had quit 2 days ago, citing irreconcilable differences. Code for, "I can't win against the Okafor legal team, and I won't destroy my career trying." He hadn't gotten around to finding a new one yet, which meant he hadn't been properly served with anything. "I want to see the order. I want proof." The guard handed him a copy through the gate. Daniel read it with mounting fury. The restraining order listed incidents of financial control, emotional manipulation, and abandonment of pregnant spouse during a medical crisis. It was signed by a judge and backed by sworn statements from Nia's doctors about her elevated blood pressure and stress-related pregnancy complications. "This is garbage. I never abused her. We had a disagreement. I asked her to leave and she's blowing it out of proportion." "Sir, you need to leave. Now." "I'm not leaving until I see my wife and we settle this like adults." 3 additional security personnel appeared. Former military, Daniel could tell by the way they moved. All of them significantly larger than him. "You can leave voluntarily, or we can remove you," the head guard said calmly. "Your choice." Daniel left, but not before he pulled out his phone and recorded a video. "This is what the Okafor family does," he said to the camera, making sure the estate gates were visible behind him. "They use their money and power to separate a husband from his wife, to keep a father from his child. They're trying to silence me because I'm not one of them, because I'm not a billionaire. But I'm fighting back. I'm exposing this family for what they are. Bullies who destroy anyone who doesn't bow to their power." He posted the video to social media. Within an hour, it had been viewed 50,000 times. Within 2 hours, the Okafor family's response was even more viral. Marcus Okafor didn't usually do interviews, but when CNN requested a statement about Daniel Thompson's video, he made an exception. The interview aired that evening. "Mr. Okafor, Daniel Thompson claims your family is keeping him from his pregnant wife. How do you respond?" Marcus sat in his office, composed and devastating in his precision. "Daniel Thompson threw my pregnant sister out of their home in the rain. She was 7 months pregnant with high blood pressure. He left her homeless and penniless while he moved his mistress into their marital home. My sister obtained a legal restraining order because she fears for her safety and her baby's health. This isn't about our family's wealth. It's about protecting a vulnerable woman from a man who's already demonstrated he has no regard for her well-being. Mr. Thompson claims he was fired from his job because of your family's interference. Mr. Thompson was fired because the company he worked for didn't want to be associated with a man who abandons his pregnant wife. Several businesses have chosen to distance themselves from him based on his character, not our influence. Though I won't apologize for making sure people know exactly who they're dealing with. There are those who say your family is using your wealth to bully Mr. Thompson. Marcus leaned forward slightly. My sister spent 3 years married to that man while hiding her connection to our family because she wanted to be loved for herself, not our money. She worked. She sold her art. She lived modestly. And the moment she was most vulnerable, 7 months pregnant, he threw her away. Now he's claiming victimhood because he's facing consequences. That's not bullying. That's justice. The interview went viral. 20 million views in 12 hours. And public opinion, which had been divided, swung decisively against Daniel. Within 24 hours, Daniel's social media accounts were flooded with criticism. People found his old posts where he'd complained about Nia's art career. Found photos of him with Amber at restaurants while Nia was pregnant. Found evidence of exactly the kind of man he was. And they dragged him mercilessly. In San Francisco, Nia watched the interview with her brothers, feeling something shift in her chest. You didn't have to do that, she told Marcus. Defend me publicly. Yes, I did. He was trying to control the narrative. Make himself the victim. Someone needed to tell the truth. Marcus looked at her seriously. Is the interview okay? Did I overstep? You were perfect. Nia felt tears building. I spent 3 years thinking I needed to be small and quiet and accommodating. Watching you stand up for me, claim me publicly as your sister, protect me. It's healing something I didn't know was broken. Isaiah, who'd been quiet during the interview, spoke up. We failed you 3 years ago, made you feel like you had to choose between love and family. We're not making that mistake again. Whatever you need, whoever tries to hurt you, we're here. Publicly, loudly, unapologetically. What if people think I'm using the family name now? That I'm hiding behind your power? Let them think whatever they want, Elijah said. You're an Okafor. That's not something to hide or apologize for. It's family. And family protects each other. Nia's phone buzzed. Her OBGYN. Nia, I need you to come in today. Your latest blood work shows concerning levels. We need to monitor you and the baby closely. With your stress levels, we're at risk of preeclampsia. The brothers were on their feet immediately. I'm driving, Marcus said. I'm coming too, Isaiah added. We all are, Elijah finished. An hour later, Nia sat in Dr. Sarah Chen's office at San Francisco's premier maternal health center, surrounded by her 3 brothers who'd insisted on being there. Dr. Chen looked at the Okafor brothers with amusement. Usually I only see one support person at appointments. Our sister needs support, Marcus said firmly. We're staying. Fair enough. Dr. Chen turned to Nia. Your blood pressure is elevated. Your stress hormones are through the roof. You're at 7 months, which means we need to be very careful about preeclampsia and premature labor. I'm putting you on bed rest for the next 2 weeks. After that, we'll reassess. Bed rest, Nia repeated. I can't just lie in bed for 2 weeks. You can and you will, Dr. Chen said. Because the alternative is premature labor and a baby in the NICU fighting for their life. Your body is telling you it's been through trauma. Listen to it. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm hiring a full-time nurse and a nutritionist and whatever else you need. I don't need all that. Yes, you do, all three brothers said in unison. Dr. Chun smiled. I like them. They can stay. Over the next 2 weeks, Nia experienced something she hadn't felt in years. Being completely taken care of. Her brothers hired a nurse who monitored her vitals 3 times daily. A nutritionist who prepared meals specifically designed for pregnancy health. A prenatal yoga instructor who came to the house for gentle exercises. A therapist who specialized in trauma and helped Nia process the emotional abuse she'd endured. And her brothers themselves rotated staying with her. Marcus worked from the estate office so he'd be close. Isaiah postponed a business trip to Dubai. Elijah conducted video conferences from the sitting room adjacent to Nia's bedroom. They watched movies with her, brought her books, set up her art supplies so she could paint from bed, talked to her baby through her belly, promising their niece or nephew that they'd be the best uncles in the world. We're spoiling you, Isaiah said one evening, helping her arrange pillows. I know. I kind of love it. Nia touched her belly, feeling the baby kick. I forgot what it felt like to be protected. To not have to be strong all the time. You're still strong. You're just not alone anymore. Isaiah sat on the edge of her bed. Can I ask you something? Did you love him, Daniel? I thought I did. But looking back, I think I loved who I wanted him to be. Who he pretended to be at the beginning. Nia was quiet for a moment. He made me feel seen. But only the parts of me he approved of. The parts that didn't threaten him or require too much from him. That's not love. That's control. I'm sorry he hurt you. I'm sorry I pushed you all away to stay with him. Nia reached for Isaiah's hand. I'm sorry I wasted 3 years we could have had together. You didn't waste anything. You learned. You grew. You survived. And now you're home with a baby on the way and brothers who are never letting you go again. Isaiah smiled. Even when you're annoying, even when you want space, we're not making that mistake again. What if I make another bad choice? What if I mess up again? Then we'll be there to help you fix it. That's what family means. While Nia healed in San Francisco, Daniel's life continued its downward spiral in Chicago. Amber had moved out, taking most of the furniture Nia had picked out. The house was in foreclosure. Daniel couldn't make payments without his job. His car had been repossessed. His credit cards were maxed out. And every job interview he went to ended the same way. Polite interest that evaporated the moment they Googled his name and found the viral videos, the news coverage, the public condemnation. He was unemployable, broke, alone, and facing a custody battle he couldn't afford to fight. The Okafor legal team had filed for full custody on Nia's behalf, citing abandonment, financial instability, and inability to provide a safe environment. They'd offered Daniel one option. Sign away all parental rights in exchange for them dropping the financial claims against him. Just walk away, his public defender advised. You can't win this. They have unlimited resources. You have nothing. Sign the papers. Start over somewhere else. Rebuild your life. But Daniel's pride wouldn't let him. He'd already lost everything. His job. His home, his girlfriend, his reputation. The baby was the only thing left that connected him to the life he tried to build. So he refused to sign, hired a cheap lawyer with money he didn't have, prepared to fight a battle he couldn't win. The court date was set for 3 weeks away. right around when Nia would be at full term. "They're going to destroy you," his lawyer warned. "Bring up every mistake, every affair, every questionable decision. Make you look like an unfit parent. Then I'll make them look like bullies using their money to steal my child. You can't outspend or outmaneuver the Okafor family. This is suicide. It's all I have left." What Daniel didn't know was that the Okafor brothers weren't relying solely on money and lawyers. They were building a case so airtight, so devastating, that Daniel wouldn't just lose custody. He'd be lucky to avoid criminal charges. Because Elijah's investigation team had found something interesting in Daniel's financial records. Something that explained where he'd gotten the money for his lifestyle upgrades 2 years ago. He'd been embezzling from Harmon Manufacturing. Small amounts, hard to trace. But over 2 years, it added up to $87,000 in stolen funds. "We give this to the authorities, he goes to prison," Elijah told his siblings. "Grand larceny, 3 to 7 years. "Do it," Marcus said without hesitation. "Wait." Nia sat up from her bed rest position. "What if we offer him a choice? Sign away parental rights and we don't prosecute. Fight us in court and we send him to prison. You want to give him a way out?" Isaiah looked surprised. "I want my baby to never have to visit their father in prison. I want closure. I want him gone from our lives completely." Nia touched her belly. "Sending him to jail keeps him connected to us through the court system, through appeals, through everything. Making him disappear is cleaner." Marcus considered this. "It's generous. More than he deserves. It's not about what he deserves. It's about what's best for my baby. And what's best is a father who chose to walk away rather than one who was forced out through criminal prosecution." The brothers looked at each other, then nodded. "We'll make the offer," Marcus decided. "But if he refuses, we prosecute." "No merci." The offer was delivered to Daniel 3 days later by a lawyer who laid out the evidence of embezzlement, the security footage, the paper trail that led directly to criminal charges. "Sign away all parental rights. Agree to never contact Nia or the child again. And the Okafor family won't prosecute," the lawyer said. "Refuse, and they hand everything over to the district attorney tomorrow. You'll be arrested by the end of the week." Daniel looked at the 2 documents in front of him. One would free him from legal consequences but cost him his child. One would let him fight for custody from a prison cell. "This is extortion," he said weakly. "This is a choice. The first fair one you've had in this whole mess." The lawyer stood. "You have 24 hours to decide. Choose wisely." That night, Daniel sat alone in the house that would soon belong to the bank, surrounded by the consequences of every bad decision he'd made, and faced a truth he'd been avoiding. He'd destroyed his own life, not the Okafor family, him. He'd thrown away a woman who'd loved him, betrayed his vows, abandoned his pregnant wife, stolen money, chosen pride over responsibility at every turn. And now he had one choice left: walk away with his freedom or lose everything, including that. The next morning, Daniel signed the papers. All parental rights terminated. A clause preventing him from ever contacting Nia or the child. An agreement to leave Chicago and never return. In exchange, the embezzlement evidence disappeared. His criminal record stayed clean. He got to walk away. But he walked away with nothing. No wife, no child, no career. Noro pietaszczyn. Just the knowledge that he'd gambled on the wrong woman and lost everything. When Nia received the signed documents, she cried, not from sadness, from relief. "It's over," she said to her brothers. He's gone. He chose to walk away. You're free, Marcus confirmed. You and the baby. Completely free. 2 weeks later, at 39 weeks and 2 days pregnant, Nia went into labor. Her brothers raced her to the hospital, all three of them holding her hands, coaching her breathing, refusing to leave her side. And at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Nia Okafor Thompson gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Amara Zuri Okafor, Amara after Nia's mother. Zuri meaning beautiful in Swahili. No mention of Thompson. No connection to the man who'd tried to throw them both away. Just Okafor. Just family. Just love. When Marcus held his niece for the first time, the intimidating billionaire cried like a baby. When Isaiah whispered promises in Igbo about all the places he'd take her, all the things he'd show her, his voice shook with emotion. When Elijah touched her tiny hand and she gripped his finger, he looked at Nia with wonder. She's perfect. You made someone perfect. We made someone perfect, Nia corrected. Our family, all of us together. And Nia, exhausted and sore and happier than she'd been in years, looked at her daughter and her brothers and felt complete. She'd lost a husband who'd never deserved her, but she'd gained back family who'd never stopped loving her. And she'd brought into the world a daughter who would grow up knowing she was cherished, protected, and valued by people who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. Daniel Thompson had thrown them away thinking they were worthless. He'd never know that he'd actually set them free to become priceless. If you haven't subscribed up till now, do so now. Let's hit 1,000 subscriber together. 6 months after Amara's birth, Nia stood in her first solo art exhibition in 5 years, holding her daughter on her hip while collectors and critics circulated through the gallery. The exhibition was called Discarded and featured 12 large-scale paintings depicting women rising from broken pieces, shattered glass, torn fabric, scattered belongings, into powerful, whole figures surrounded by light. It was her story, her healing, her transformation from the woman thrown into the rain to the mother and artist she'd become. This piece, a critic from the San Francisco Chronicle said, pointing to the centerpiece, a woman emerging from a rainstorm, holding a baby, surrounded by 3 guardian figures. It's extraordinary. The emotion, the resilience, the commentary on women rebuilding after trauma. Thank you, Nia said, adjusting Amara, who was trying to grab the pearl necklace Marcus had given her for the opening. It's personal work, healing work. The exhibition sold out in 2 hours. Every painting purchased by collectors who understood they weren't just buying art. They were buying pieces of a story about survival and family. Marcus, Isaiah, and Elijah stood in the back of the gallery, watching their sister shine. She's back, Isaiah said quietly. The Nia we remember. The one who glowed when she talked about her art. Better than back, Elijah corrected. She's evolved. That woman is stronger than the girl who left us 3 years ago. Because she survived something that should have broken her and came out the other side whole. Marcus agreed. I'm proud of her. As the evening wound down, a man approached Nia. Late 30s, black, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He wore a simple suit and carried a gallery catalog. Ms. Okafor? I'm Dr. James Wellington. I run the African American Art Institute here in San Francisco. I've been following your work since your Chicago days. He gestured to the paintings. This exhibition is remarkable. I'd like to talk to you about a residency program we're launching. 6 months, full funding to create work exploring the Black female experience. Your voice, your perspective, It's exactly what we're looking for. Nia felt her heart race. A residency? That's incredible. But I have a baby. I don't know if I can commit to. The residency includes childcare, studio space, whatever you need to create while being a mother. We're not asking you to choose between art and family. We're asking you to bring both. After Dr. Wellington left his card, Nia found her brothers. Did you hear that? She asked, barely containing her excitement. A residency. A real, prestigious residency at one of the most respected art institutes in the country. You're taking it, right? Marcus said. I don't know. It's a lot. 6 months. What if I'm not good enough? What if... Stop, Elijah interrupted. You just sold out your first exhibition in 2 hours. You're good enough. You've always been good enough. The only person who ever made you doubt that was Daniel. The mention of his name brought a shadow across Nia's joy. I haven't heard anything about him in months, she said. Do we know where he is? What he's doing? Last we heard, he'd moved to Phoenix, Isaiah said. Working in retail, keeping his head down, staying away like he agreed. Good, Nia said firmly. I want him forgotten. I want to focus on my future, not my past. What none of them knew was that Daniel Thompson wasn't keeping his head down. He was planning one final act of spite. In Phoenix, Arizona, Daniel had spent 6 months festering in resentment. He'd lost everything. His wife, his child, his career, his reputation. The Okafor family had systematically destroyed every aspect of his life, and he'd been forced to sign away his own daughter just to avoid prison. Every day he thought about the unfairness of it all. How he'd been punished for making one mistake. How Nia had hidden her family's wealth and power. How he'd been outmaneuvered by billionaires who'd crushed him like an insect. And every day he grew more bitter. He'd tried to move on. Dated a few women who'd quickly left when they Googled his name and found the viral videos. Applied for better jobs that evaporated when background checks revealed his past. Attempted to rebuild a life that kept crumbling because his mistakes followed him everywhere. Finally, Daniel decided that if he couldn't rebuild, he'd burn it all down. He contacted a tabloid journalist who specialized in exposing wealthy families. Offered an exclusive interview about the real Okafor family. About how they'd used their power to steal his child. How Nia had lied about her identity to trap him in marriage. How they'd crushed him for the crime of not being rich enough. I'll tell you everything, Daniel promised. The manipulation, the intimidation, how they destroyed my life because I wasn't one of them. How they're not the perfect family they pretend to be. The journalist, smelling a story that would generate clicks and controversy, agreed. The interview was scheduled to publish in 2 weeks. Daniel smiled for the first time in months. He might have lost the war, but he could still win one battle. He could damage the Okafor reputation. Make them feel even a fraction of the pain they'd caused him. He had no idea that Marcus Okafor's security team monitored everything Daniel did. That they'd flagged the journalist contact immediately. That the Okafor family was already 3 steps ahead. He's doing an interview, Marcus told his siblings in the estate study, trying to paint us as villains, claiming we stole his child and destroyed his life unjustly. Can we stop it? Nia asked, Amara asleep in her arms. We can buy the story, pay the tabloid more than Daniel's offering. They'll kill the piece. Marcus looked at Nia seriously. But that just delays the problem. He'll try again with another outlet. Keep telling his version until someone publishes it. So what do we do? Elijah leaned forward. We let him publish, and then we destroy his credibility so thoroughly that no one will ever believe another word he says. How? By releasing everything. The evidence of embezzlement we didn't prosecute. The affair timeline showing he was cheating while you were pregnant. The financial records showing he stole from your joint accounts. The testimony from Amber about how he planned to use her father's business connections. Elijah's voice was cold. We've been merciful. We let him walk away clean. But if he wants to break the agreement and attack our family publicly, we bury him. That feels like sinking to his level, Nia said quietly. No, Isaiah corrected. Sinking to his level would be lying. We're just telling the truth. Every documented, verified truth about who he is and what he did. If he wants to make this public, we'll make sure the public knows the full story. Nia looked at her brothers, at their protective fury, and felt torn. Part of her wanted to take the high road, ignore Daniel's attempts to hurt them. But another part, the part that remembered standing in the rain, homeless and pregnant, wanted justice. Do it, she decided. But I want to make a statement too. I want to tell my side. Not through lawyers or PR teams. Me. My voice. My story. Are you sure? Marcus asked. Once you go public, you can't take it back. You'll be opening yourself to scrutiny, criticism, questions. I've been silent for 6 months. Let Daniel control the narrative in his head while I healed. But I'm healed now, and I'm not hiding anymore. Nia stood, still holding Amara. I'm an Okafor. That means I don't let people attack my family without responding. And Daniel just attacked my daughter's family. Over the next week, the Okafor family prepared their counteroffensive. They contacted major media outlets with an exclusive. Nia Okafor Thompson would give her first and only interview about her marriage, divorce, and journey to healing. She'd discuss domestic emotional abuse, financial control, and rebuilding after betrayal. The interview was scheduled with Oprah's production company for a special that would air the same week Daniel's tabloid piece published. Nia spent days preparing, working with media coaches, reviewing the questions, deciding what she was willing to share and what she'd keep private. You don't owe anyone your whole story, the producer told her. Just enough to show the truth, to help other women who might be in similar situations. The interview was filmed in the estate's garden. Nia wearing a simple blue dress, Amara playing nearby with a nanny just off camera. Tell me about the night your ex-husband asked you to leave. The interviewer began. Nia took a breath and told her story. About the rain, the suitcase, the door closing on her and her unborn child. About standing in the street, 7 months pregnant, with nowhere to go. What went through your mind in that moment? The interviewer asked gently. That I'd made a terrible mistake. That I'd given up everything for a man who saw me as disposable. That I'd been so focused on proving I didn't need my family's money that I'd forgotten I needed my family. Period. Nia's voice was steady, strong. But I also thought about my baby. About the life growing inside me who deserved better. Who deserved a mother brave enough to ask for help. So I called my brothers. And they came for me. No judgment. No, I told you so. Just unconditional love and protection. Your ex-husband claims you hid your family's wealth to trap him in marriage. That you deceived him about who you were. I protected myself. There's a difference. I wanted to be loved for me, not my last name or my family's money. I was honest about everything that mattered. My values, my dreams, my heart. The money was irrelevant until he made it relevant by throwing me out and assuming I had no one to protect me. Nia looked directly at the camera. Daniel didn't fall in love with a poor woman he later discovered was rich. He fell in love with whoever I pretended to be to make him happy. And when I was pregnant and vulnerable and needed him most, he showed me exactly who he was. That's not on me. That's on him. What do you want other women in similar situations to know? That you're not trapped. That asking for help isn't weakness. That choosing yourself and your children over a toxic relationship is the bravest thing you can do. Nia's voice strengthened. I spent 3 years making myself smaller to fit into someone else's life, making my dreams secondary to his comfort, apologizing for taking up space. And when he threw me away, I discovered something. I was never small. I was never worthless. I was just with someone who needed me to believe I was. The interview was powerful, raw, honest, and when it aired, it went viral immediately. 20 million views in the first day, 50 million by the end of the week. Women sharing their own stories of leaving toxic relationships, of choosing themselves, of finding family, biological or chosen, who helped them heal. Daniel's tabloid interview, published the same week, painted him as a victim of wealthy bullies who'd stolen his child. But next to Nia's interview, next to the evidence the Okafor team released of his affairs and embezzlement and cruelty, Daniel's version rang hollow, bitter, small. Public opinion wasn't divided this time. It was unanimous. Daniel Thompson had thrown away something precious and was now trying to blame everyone but himself. The backlash was swift. The tabloid that published his interview issued an apology for not fact-checking his claims. Daniel's social media was flooded with criticism. Even people who'd initially sympathized with him turned against him when they saw the full evidence. And in San Francisco, Nia accepted the residency at the African American Art Institute, scheduled to begin in 2 months. She'd won, not by destroying Daniel, he'd destroyed himself, but by telling her truth and living her life beautifully despite what he'd tried to take from her. But Daniel had one final card to play. 2 weeks after the interviews aired, he filed a lawsuit, not against Nia he'd signed away, that right, but against Marcus, Isaiah, and Elijah personally, claiming they'd interfered with his parental rights, defamed his character, and caused him emotional and financial harm. He was suing for $50 million. It was frivolous. His lawyer, another bargain attorney, even told him he had no chance of winning. But Daniel didn't care about winning. He cared about forcing the Okafor family to spend time and money fighting him in court, about creating a public spectacle that would keep his version of events in the news cycle, about making them suffer even a fraction of what he'd suffered. This is harassment, the Okafor lawyer told the family. Pure spite. We can get it dismissed, but it'll take months. And during those months, he'll give interviews, make statements, try to damage your reputation. Let him, Nia said, surprising everyone. Let him file his lawsuit. Let him tell his lies. Let him waste his money on legal fees he can't afford. Because every time he attacks us, every time he makes this public, he's showing the world exactly who he is. And we're showing the world who we are. A family that protects each other, that tells the truth, that doesn't back down from bullies. Marcus smiled at his sister. When did you get so fierce? I've always been fierce. I just forgot for a while. Daniel reminded me what I'm not. You all reminded me what I am. Nia looked at her brothers. So let's fight his lawsuit. Let's win in court. And let's make absolutely sure that when this is over, Daniel Thompson understands he picked a fight with the wrong family. And after we win? Isaiah asked. After we win, we move on. We live beautifully. We raise Amara to know her worth. And we let Daniel fade into the obscurity he deserves while we build futures that matter. Elijah stood, raised his coffee cup. To Nia, who survived, who healed, who became everything Daniel tried to convince her she wasn't. The brothers raised their cups. To Nia, and Nia, holding her daughter, surrounded by family who'd never stopped fighting for her, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Daniel could file his lawsuits, could tell his lies, could spend whatever energy he had left trying to hurt them. It wouldn't work, because the Okafor family was united, protected, unbreakable, and Nia Okafor was exactly where she belonged. Home. Daniel's lawsuit was dismissed within 6 months. The judge called it frivolous harassment and ordered Daniel to pay the Okafor family's legal fees. $340,000 he'd spend years paying off. It was the final nail in a coffin Daniel had built himself. 2 years later, Nia stood at her residency graduation exhibition, holding 3-year-old Amara's hand, surrounded by paintings that had earned her international recognition. The African American Art Institute had offered her a permanent position as artist-in-residence and instructor. She'd also met someone, Dr. James Wellington, the man who'd first approached her at her comeback exhibition. Their relationship had developed slowly, carefully, built on mutual respect and genuine connection. He loved her art, adored Amara, and never once made her feel small. Marcus, Isaiah, and Elijah watched their sister shine. Their niece giggle and felt complete satisfaction. Daniel Thompson had tried to discard them thinking they were worthless. Instead, he'd freed Nia to become priceless. She'd rebuilt her life, her art, her heart, found love that cherished instead of controlled, raised a daughter surrounded by family who'd move mountains to protect her. Daniel had gotten exactly what he'd given, nothing. Nia had gotten everything she deserved. Everything. Thank you for joining Nia's journey from heartbreak to healing. If this story reminded you that you're never alone, that family protects, and that your worth isn't determined by who walks away, please leave a comment sharing your favorite moment. Remember, you are not what happened to you. You are not defined by who failed to see your value. You are worthy of love that lifts you up, family that stands beside you, and a future that reflects your true worth. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because I have many more stories about resilience, justice, and the power of family. You are enough. You are valued. You are never alone. Until next time, choose yourself, choose family, and choose the courage to walk away from anyone who makes you feel less than extraordinary. See you in the next story.